So it's been a busy week as far as Mortal Kombat 1 news, and there's been recent interviews still coming from Summer Game Fest. One in particular, an interview with Ed Boon and Danny Pena I wanted to cover. There's also not one, but two different leaks that have been released, and more specifically with these leaks, aside from the basic, DLC roster cameo information, I more want to specifically talk about the gameplay and almost what other things you could be expecting to see, and also they kind of give teases as to what's coming soon as far as more opportunities to get more footage, gameplay trailers, etc. So let's go ahead and dive right into it because it's quite a lot to cover. So I'm gonna start off with the Daniel Pena with Gamer Tag Radio interview. He asked Ed Boon quite a plethora of questions that kind of cover a whole scope of what Mortal Kombat 1's about. And he kind of talks about the brand new origin stories for all the characters. And as I've talked about in previous videos, Ed Boon is trying to let us know that what we have in our minds, Mortal Kombat characters, keep that. But going forward, Mortal Kombat 1 is going to be a retelling of the characters. So still something I have to get used to, but, I'm kind of excited to see how it goes. He kind of explained that, we'll be looking at characters and like, oh, they previously did this, and this. And I think there's been like the teases going around about the Deadly Alliance. So Quan Chi and Shang Tsung. So we're going to see these characters interact and think, are they going to go down this path? Or maybe they'll go down a different path. So it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic play out once we actually start playing the game and go through the campaign and story modes. He does touch on cameos. He says that cameos are more of a novelty or a nod and not meant to be in the story and are for pure nostalgia purposes. The cameos will be presented in a classic way to represent how fans first met them in MK games. Now, given with the footage that we've seen so far at Summer Game Fest with Sonya Blade, Kano, and Jax, they are in their original attire from when they were kind of first introduced in the game. So Mortal Kombat 2, and that's why we have the different skins and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of interesting because that's, of course, like Kano, he's how I remember him from Mortal Kombat 1, the original. And so that's, of course, where like myself first got introduced to him. And I think that's kind of cool that that's going to be more of how we see these characters come into play. I'm kind of really excited if that's the case for more of the cameos that kind of maybe represent Mortal Kombat 3. Striker is already in that way. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. He goes on to say that the main roster is a part of the story. Cameos will also be in the campaign and will be separate from the cameos in the roster select screen. So we'll get cameos that we already can kind of pre-select, and then we'll kind of meet new cameos that are only in the campaign, which will be interesting. He says each cameo has at least one fatality and is an updated version of the classic fatality. So we obviously saw the, famous fatality for Sonya where she does the kiss, so it's been kind of modernized and updated with graphics and mechanics and all that kind of good stuff. So it's kind of cool to see. He says there will be a steady stream of new content presented to fans between now and the game's release in September. He says there are new game modes that have yet to be revealed and hopefully will be revealed up until the release. So I think that's very interesting, and there's some leaks that kind of echo that sentiment. It says Liu Kang is the only character with all prior knowledge of the previous timeline. So given that he was saying that it's been kind of a build-up from Liu Kang throughout all the different Mortal Kombat games up until now he's Fire God Liu Kang, he's kind of reset the timeline so he retains the way he is and all his knowledge, which I think is very interesting. So he talks about how, again with Shang Tsung, he kind of knows the path he can go down, so he's trying to either prevent that or stop him from whatever he's trying to do. So I think that's very interesting. It says Mortal Kombat 1 will play different from Mortal Kombat 11 and will be more about the pairings with cameos and more about combos and the mechanics of the gameplay. So different than how we're used to seeing it as far as in the fighting style of the 1 versus 1, or in this case, 1.5 versus 1.5, 2 versus 2, however you want to say it. He did go into detail about Jean-Claude Van Damme and how they have been pursuing him over the years, all the way back to when Bloodsport was first coming out and it was going to be a Bloodsport game. He did say that they did get his voice recordings done remotely, so I think that's very interesting. And again, we're looking forward to seeing the Johnny Cage skin for Jean-Claude Van Damme. So that's all that Ed Boon basically covered in the Danny Pena interview, and it's quite a bit and a lot of good details and kind of gives us a better idea of what we can expect. But on top of that, like I said, we have two new leaks that have come out. One is going to be from a Reddit post, and then one from our lovely 4chan. So I'm going to cover the, let's do the Reddit one first. And this is posted from Mortal Kombat leaks from the Mortal Kombat 1 Insider. Not really much It says new leaks, but I think it's just more of like a discussion of what leaks have kind of been discussed recently. So he says, been in the industry a while and think it's finally time to switch to the dark side of leaking content. NetherRealm Studios currently has 2 more gameplay trailers lined up, releasing within the next month and a half. Very interesting with that note. One showcasing old character returning Natara, Lee May, and Havoc as playable, and then Serena, Chameleon, the Chameleon, I'm guessing the female version maybe, and Draman as cameos. And the other showcasing 2 new characters coming to MK1. They're basing one they released first on community feedback, so they're heavily leaning towards the old character trailer first. The stress test is planned for late June, early July. The beta date is August 14th as of now, with some slight wiggle room depending on how the stress test goes. As for DLC characters, again, we've heard this well before, we have Homelander, Peacemaker, and Omni-Man are all confirmed. J.K. Simmons has signed on to voice Omni-Man, while meanwhile contracts are still being worked out for Anthony Starr and John Cena. They're already taking feedback on the gameplay from the media and content creators. Dashing is being looked at to be sped up, and slowed down at the end of the fight is to be removed and to make it easier for brutalities. So we've seen the same, again, mostly 3D era characters being bounced around between playable, non-playable. Are they going to be cameos? Given Ed Boon's comments about how all these characters that we, for nostalgia play, are going to be cameos, I think that's where we could see characters like maybe Draman. I think characters that actually have more to say in the story, given how far back we've gone, how much of a reboot we've actually doing as far as retelling the stories. I think that would make more of a case for Natara, Lee May, Havoc. I think those characters should be playable characters. Now, I will say that as far as new characters, in the Danny Pena interview, he did talk about new characters, and Ed Boon kind of made it seem like there were not going to be any new characters in the game. You can correct me if I'm wrong if you have another comment from somewhere else, but that's what I got. So I don't know they're actually going to have new characters in the game. And given that there's a reboot, I was kind of hoping if we went that far back, maybe we would have new characters. But, you know, Mortal Kombat has an extensive roster, so maybe we don't need them at this point in time. Just kind of have to wait and see. Other than that, as far as some of the dates, I have one more leak to go through, but then we'll kind of talk about some of the dates as far as what's being discussed, because some of what Ed Boon has talked about and some of what some official events that are coming up kind of contradict some of these dates, but we'll kind of get to that here in a second. As far as the DLC goes, this is kind of what we've already been talked about from the Amazon leak, and it still has not really changed, although some other insiders have kind of deconfirmed this information and some are kind of sticking with it. So we kind of have to wait and see, but I don't know about having, you know, J.K. Simmons is kind of down for anything, given how many times he's kind of been in like all the Spider-Man movies, so he might be down for it, but I don't know about Anthony Starr and I guess John Cena. I mean, what else is he doing right now? He could do it. So that's the Reddit leak. So now let's move on to the 4chan leak, and this is of course labeled Mortal Kombat 1 roster, cameos, and game modes leak from our lovely Anonymous. It's Anonymous, guys. I hope to one day meet Anonymous. So they kind of go through the roster. The base roster is going to include Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, no Sub-Zero unfortunately, maybe someday, like an alter ego. We have Raiden, Kitana, Melina, Smoke, Reptile, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Kano, Kinshi, Lee May, Tanya, Garrus, Baraka, Natara, Rain, Ashra, Reiko, Havoc, Sindel, Shao Kahn, and Shang Tsung. Now, when I counted those, that's about 20. There's 24 slots, and that's 25 characters. So possibly they could all be included, or to 24, and then maybe a DLC for Shang Tsung. Not quite sure. Some of those names kind of match up to the MK1 edits one that was the fake leak, but it's been the same kind of characters in previous leaks so far as well. So nothing too terribly new. As far as cameos go, he lists Scorpion, he or she, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kung Lao, Kitana, Melina, Reptile, Sonya Blade, Kano, Serena, Jade, Jax, Stryker, Sector, Cyrax, Goro, and Motaro. Now we know that, and it's been talked about, that cameos will be interchangeable as far as base roster. Some of them, so like the main roster, can also be cameos, so that's why that's kind of listed in the cameo slot. I'm kind of hesitant about Sector, Cyrax, and Motaro. Sector and Cyrax have been rumored and wanted for fans to be in the game. I don't know if they're going to be. And Mataro, I know I've been reading that they just have maybe some difficulties bringing him into the more modern games, so maybe he won't be there, although he'd be a classic character that people would want to see, especially if they're just going to be flying around doing some combo moves and fatalities. I'd love to see him. So continuing on, we have the arenas. This is kind of some newer information. We have 20 arenas on base with 4 more coming in DLC. 9 stages have day or night options that do not take up extra slots. So if you notice on there, like it says, you can toggle between them. There's a little toggle icon. You kind of flip back and forth day and night for certain ones. But returning stages could include a new pit, the Living Forest, the Wuxi Academy, the Linkway Temple, and the Portal. Pit and Portal have always been favorites for me. I think the Living Forest is going to make a lot of fans happy, especially if smoke is included in there. So I'm interested to see what other kind of stages they have, because throughout all of Mortal Kombat's history, I have a lot of stages to choose from, and modern takes on them, especially given the detail and depth that we're getting with these new stages. I'd love to see that. So it goes on to say that the select screen is not the final version. 2 more spots are going to be added in the middle. One for random select and the other for Shang Tsung. So kind of talked about that in a previous video as well. Shang Tsung is the boss and is trying to overthrow Liu Kang's dominion over his new era. Shang Tsung has a special, bigger boss fight design. So this detail is interesting because in the Danny Pena interview with Ed Boon, he talked about how he didn't really go into detail about who the main villain was, but that, or it's been discussed that the main villain may or may not be one specific person. So it could be who we think the villain could really be some other person. So it's kind of interesting to think that, is Shang Tsung going to be the big bad villain of the whole game? As far as the bigger boss fight design, I mean, given how he was in the cinematic trailer where he got pretty destroyed by Liu Kang, I'd be kind of curious to see about what kind of leveling up he can do, what tricks he has up his sleeve. I mean, is he just going to like kill people and steal souls and like that's how he powers up? I'm not quite sure. Maybe Liu Kang's not the only one that remembers his past, and maybe Shang Tsung has a way to tap into that, and maybe he and all the other Shang Tsungs from the past team up and they do something. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. Anyways, don't know exactly what they're going to do, but we'll see. Talk about gear. Gear is still present, though less emphasis on them, and different costumes are still a thing. There are less color variations and more unique. Cameos will also have alternate costumes you can unlock. You know, I think one of the cool thing was with Mortal Kombat 11, a lot of people got really creative with the type of costumes and gear they did with the characters. You know, they were making MK characters look like MK characters of past. They were doing like different IPs, making them look like different things like clowns and stuff like that. So I think that's very cool, and hope that kind of somewhat continues in the new game. Cameos have different attacks when summoned, as well as a single fatality inspired by their classics. Ed Boon touched on this. You can summon them to finish your opponent or for you at the end of a match upon winning. Here's more about some new modes. So we have time battle towers are returning with special cosmetics as rewards, which seems kind of cool. The crypt is not returning. Instead, it has been merged with a new version of Conquest that features an insane amount of content and chests to unlock consumables, currency, and cosmetics. So again, Ed Boon kind of touched on this, and it's been touched on this in previous leaks. So it's kind of interesting to see what they're really going to do about that. I don't know if it's going to be true open world or just kind of as the story progresses, but overall I'm looking to see how that really kind of plays out. It says Amazon's Elite Combat Pack is correct, so Quan Chi, Ermac, Takeda, Homelander, Omni-Man, and Peacemaker, as well as Johnny Cage, Tremor, Ferritor, Chameleon, Movado as cameos, Anthony Starr, J.K. Simmons, and John Cena are going to reprise their roles. This has already been talked about exhaustively now. Just kind of waiting for some type of confirmation or like official thing, but there you go with that. Now it says future DLC will include more story chapters as well as Jax, Kintaro, there's Kintaro fans, you got your mention, and Devora as downloadable fighters, as well as Hotaru, Nightwolf, Cyber Smoke, Raicho, and Kira as cameos. So again, kind of playing off that nostalgia factor, I can see how Kintaro, Hotaru, maybe Nightwolf, I kind of wish Nightwolf was in the story, but Nightwolf, Cyber Smoke for sure, that's a nostalgia play. Raicho, I don't think he belongs in the story. And I guess Kira, I kind of throw her in there just like Meat and Mocap and all these other characters that may or may not mean necessary to a story, but for nostalgia play, right? So that is the 4chan leak. Now, that's a lot of information to go off of, but one of the main things aside from the consistency with roster and cameos, I'd love your thoughts and comments down below about who you think will be in the game, who do you want in the game. I will say that we have a lot of opportunities coming up, as Ed Boon said in his interview with Danny Pena, for stuff coming up. And the big discussion is, when are we going to get new stuff? New reveals, new content for Mortal Kombat 1, because a lot of it should be coming. So there's been a rumor going on about June 23rd, which is a Friday. I don't know what's significant about that date in particular, but if that was the case, that's basically almost a week from now. So maybe that's possible. Other dates would be for Comic-Con, which is in July. That's like the third week of July. And then we also have EVO 2023, which just confirmed that you'll be able to play publicly Mortal Kombat 1 at EVO 2023 in Las Vegas. And that's in August. So that's super close to the next game. So it's more reveal for this month, something in July, something in August. And then we have, the stress test, the open beta, or whatever they want to call it, your early access, and then have the game actually release. And maybe throughout all those kind of playing and feedback, they kind of make some changes here and there, and who knows, but that's what I think is going to possibly be happening. So let me know all your thoughts about the Danny Pena interview, the Reddit leak, and the 4chan leak. All your thoughts and comments down below. This video, guys, enjoy that like button. Or just like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time on the Mashup.